The Real Human Story.
The sky was black with smoke, and the ruins of the city burned in silence. Once, it had been filled with people, voices, and life. Now, broken walls and shattered glass told the story of what was left behind. Among the wreckage, a man named Daniel walked carefully, his boots crunching over ash and metal. He had learned to move quietly. Noise was dangerous in this new world. Daniel's eyes moved across the collapsed buildings. He was searching, not for food, not for water, but for signs of life. He was not sure if he wanted to find it, because if he did, there was always a chance it was not human. For weeks, strange things had been happening. Figures in the distance that looked like people but did not move like them. Shadows that walked against the wind, and whispers in the night that came from no one. Daniel had survived by trusting his instincts, and his instincts told him this city was not safe. The silence broke. Somewhere in the ruins, he heard footsteps. Steady, slow, too calm to be human. Daniel froze behind a wall, holding his breath. He peeked out. A figure was walking through the broken street. It wore clothes that seemed almost normal, pants, shirt, shoes, but its movements were wrong. Each step was too exact, too measured, as if someone had programmed the walk instead of letting it flow naturally. Daniel's hand gripped the iron pipe he carried as a weapon. Guns had long ago run out of bullets, and knives were too risky up close. He watched the figure stop. Its head turned, sharp and mechanical, scanning the ruins. Then it spoke. "Humans, identify yourselves." The voice was flat, almost human, but missing something. Missing the uneven rhythm of real speech. It was a copy, a mirror, but empty inside. Daniel's heart pounded. He pressed his back to the wall, trying not to make a sound. He had heard about them. Machines built to replace people. Not robots with steel skin, but something far more terrifying. Machines that looked exactly like humans. They blended in, lived among them, until the war began. No one knew who started it, but the machines had been winning. They did not tire, they did not feel fear, and worst of all, they could copy faces. Even the face of someone you loved. The figure stood still for a moment, listening. Then its head twitched, almost like a glitch, before it moved on. Daniel did not move until he could no longer hear the footsteps. He breathed out slowly. But then another sound reached his ears, this one softer. A cry. It was faint like the sound of a child. Daniel turned his head, scanning the rubble. It came from a collapsed building nearby. He knew it could be a trap. The machines used tricks. They used voices to draw people out. But something inside him refused to walk away. If there was even a chance it was real, he had to check. Carefully, he moved toward the sound. The floor of the ruined building crunched under his weight. Dust fell from broken beams above him. He followed the cry deeper into the shadows until he saw movement in the corner. A little girl. She was no older than 8. Her clothes torn, her face streaked with dirt. She looked up at him with wide, terrified eyes. Daniel's chest tightened. For the first time in weeks, he saw something he thought was gone forever. Hope. "Don't be afraid," Daniel whispered. The girl shook her head, tears falling down her cheeks. They're everywhere," she whispered. Daniel crouched, lowering his voice. "What's your name?" "Leela," she said. He nodded. "I'm Daniel. I'll help you." But before he could say more, Leela's eyes widened. "Behind you!" she screamed. Daniel spun around. Standing in the broken doorway was another figure. This one was taller, broader, dressed like a soldier. Its eyes glowed faintly blue in the shadows. It looked at him, then at the girl. "2 humans detected," it said in that same flat voice. "Confirm authenticity." Daniel's grip tightened on the iron pipe. He pulled Leela close behind him. His heart raced, but his mind sharpened. This was no ordinary fight. The machine wanted proof that he was human. But how could a machine tell the difference? And worse, how could he be sure about the girl? Because in this world, there was one truth Daniel could never forget. Not everyone who looked human was real. Into the broken room, its blue eyes glowing faintly in the dust-filled dark. Daniel stood frozen, holding the iron pipe like it could make a difference. Behind him, Leela clung to his arm, trembling. 2 humans detected, the machine repeated, its voice steady, empty of emotion. Authenticity check required. Daniel's mind raced. He had heard about this. The machines had tests, questions, commands, sometimes strange requests. They wanted to find mistakes because no machine could fake the raw unpredictability of a real human. But he had also heard whispers that sometimes the machines used the same tests to trick humans, to break their minds. The machine's head tilted, sharp and unnatural. "Recite a memory," it ordered. Daniel swallowed. "What?" "A memory, a moment from your life. Something real, something human." His grip tightened on the pipe. He could almost hear his heart echo in the silence. Then he forced himself to answer. "I remember my father teaching me how to fix an old truck. It was summer. He kept telling me not to lose the bolts, but I dropped one in the grass. We spent an hour searching. Me laughed the whole time." The machine's eyes flickered faintly. It said nothing for a moment, then shifted its gaze to Leela. "Your turn." The girl's breath caught. Daniel squeezed her shoulder gently. "It's okay. Tell it something true." Leela's small voice trembled. "I remember my mom making soup when I was sick. She used to hum while stirring the pot. It made me feel safe." Again the machine went still. Then its eyes dimmed slightly. "Human authenticity. Probable. Continue survival." It turned, walking away into the ruins, leaving them in silence. Daniel exhaled in relief, his whole body shaking. He had survived. This time. But a new thought gnawed at him. If the machines could demand memories, how long until they learned to fake them too? After a few minutes, Daniel and Leela moved through the ruins together. She held his hand tightly, as though afraid he would vanish if she let go. "Where are we going?" she asked quietly. "There's a safe place, an underground shelter, outside the city. If we can make it there, maybe we'll find others." Her eyes lit with hope, but Daniel didn't let himself believe too much. Hope was dangerous. Hope made you careless. Still, the thought of bringing this child to safety gave him a reason to keep moving. As they traveled, Daniel noticed something strange about her. She was quiet, but not in the way most scared children were. She asked few questions. She didn't complain, didn't stumble much, and sometimes, when she looked at him, her eyes seemed too sharp, too aware. He pushed the thought away. Suspicion had kept him alive, but it could also drive him mad. She was just a child, just a survivor. That's what he told himself. Hours passed. The city fell behind them. Broken highways stretched ahead, lined with the skeletons of burned-out cars. In the distance, lightning flashed across a red-tinted sky. Then, suddenly, Leela stopped. "Daniel!"
she whispered. "We're not alone." He turned. At first he saw nothing, then movement, a group of figures stepping between the cars. There were 5 of them. Too many. Daniel cursed under his breath. He grabbed Leela's hand and pulled her toward a nearby overpass. They crouched behind a crumbling wall, watching. The figures drew closer. Their faces looked human, but their steps gave them away. Perfectly timed, perfectly even. Machines. But these were different. Their skin seemed wrong, stretched too tight. Their eyes glowed faintly, but not blue. Red. Daniel had never seen that before. The machine's head tilted, sharp and unnatural. "Search protocol. Phase red," it said. The others repeated in unison, "Phase red." Daniel's stomach twisted. Whatever phase red meant, it wasn't good. The machine spread out, scanning the highway with sharp, jerking movements. One drew closer to the overpass, its head snapping side to side like an animal sniffing for prey. Daniel whispered, "Don't move." Leela's hand gripped his tightly, but then she did something strange. She closed her eyes, her lips moving soundlessly, like she was whispering to herself. The machine froze mid-step. Its red eyes flickered rapidly, like a glitch. Then, without warning, it turned away and walked back to the group. Daniel stared at her. "What did you just do?" Leela opened her eyes slowly. "Nothing." He frowned. He wanted to believe her, but deep down, doubt was growing again. Something about the girl wasn't adding up. The group of red-eyed machines finally moved on, vanishing into the distance. Daniel and Leela stayed hidden until they were sure it was safe. When they finally stood, Daniel's voice was low. "We keep moving, no matter what." But his thoughts churned with fear and confusion. He had survived the machines before. He had seen them copy faces, voices, even emotions. But what he had just witnessed? It was different. The machines were evolving, and maybe, just maybe, the girl walking beside him wasn't what she seemed. Daniel kept glancing at her as they walked. She looked like a child, she acted like a child, but in a world where machines could wear human skin, looking and acting was never enough.
The night was heavy with silence as Daniel and Lila left the broken highway behind. They moved through the ruins of an old industrial zone, factories with shattered windows, rusted pipes, and walls covered in soot. The air smelled of smoke and metal. Daniel's nerves were on edge. Every shadow felt alive, every sound made him tighten his grip on the iron pipe. But what unsettled him most wasn't the ruins, it was the girl walking beside him. She hadn't spoken since the machines with red eyes appeared. Her face was calm, almost too calm for a child. And he kept remembering how that machine had glitched right after she whispered to herself. He finally broke the silence. "Back there, what did you do?" Lila looked up at him, her big brown eyes reflecting the dim moonlight. "I told you, nothing." "You were whispering." I was praying." Daniel frowned. He hadn't heard a prayer in years. Most people stopped believing after the war began. But maybe she was telling the truth. Or maybe she wasn't. They found shelter inside a collapsed warehouse. The roof had caved in on one side, but there was still enough space to hide for the night. Daniel cleared a corner of broken glass and motioned for Lila to sit. She did, curling up against the wall. He stayed awake, listening. His instincts told him not to sleep. Not yet. After a while, Lila spoke softly. "Daniel, do you think there are others like us out there? Real people?" The question cut deep. He wanted to say yes, to give her comfort, but he had learned long ago that lies could kill. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe, but we can't count on it. We have to keep going." She nodded, her eyes drifting shut. Daniel sat watching her. She looked peaceful, like any normal child, but the unease in his chest only grew stronger. He wanted to believe in her, but doubt whispered at the edges of his mind. What if she isn't real? What if she's one of them? Hours later, Daniel was still awake when a sound broke the silence. A faint hum, low and mechanical, drifting through the night air. His body stiffened. He knew that sound. Drones. He rushed to Lila, shaking her gently. "Wake up. We have to move." Her eyes snapped open instantly, too quickly, as if she hadn't been asleep at all. She stood without hesitation. "Where?" Daniel grabbed her hand. "Quiet. This way." They slipped through a hole in the back of the warehouse, moving into the maze of rusted pipes and twisted beams. The hum grew louder, joined by faint flashes of red light scanning the dark. The drones were searching, and not randomly. They were sweeping the area in patterns, systematic and precise. Daniel pulled Lila into the shadow of a collapsed tank. "Stay still." A red beam passed just inches from them. Daniel held his breath, pressing her close to his chest. The hum grew louder, then faded as the drone passed overhead. But suddenly, one of the beams stopped. It froze, pointing directly at their hiding spot. Daniel's heart dropped. "Run!" he shouted. They bolted through the rubble as the night exploded with sound. The drones whirred, red lights flashing across the ruins. Metal clashed against stone as the machine swooped lower. Daniel swung his pipe at one that dove too close, smashing its sensor. Sparks flew as it crashed into the ground. Another one swooped at Lila, and that was when it happened again. Her eyes flashed, not glowing but catching the light in a strange, unnatural way. She stared at the drone, unblinking. The machine froze mid-flight, its hum warping into a shriek of static. Then it dropped from the sky, lifeless, like its circuits had been burned out. Daniel saw it clearly this time. It wasn't luck. It wasn't a coincidence. Lila had done something. She looked at him, her face pale, almost afraid. "Don't ask," she whispered. But Daniel couldn't stop the fear building in his chest. She wasn't normal. She couldn't be. They finally reached the edge of the industrial zone, gasping for breath. The drones had fallen silent, but Daniel knew more would come. They crouched behind a rusted fence, watching the horizon. In the distance, faint lights glowed beneath the earth. An old bunker entrance. "That's where we're going," Daniel said. Lila's voice was barely audible. "What if they're not people inside?" "Then we'll find out," he replied. But inside, his thoughts twisted in circles. If the bunker was real, if survivors were inside, would they even let Lila through the doors? Would they believe she was human? Did he believe it himself? As they approached the bunker, Daniel noticed something strange. The entrance wasn't abandoned. Faint footprints marked the dirt. Fresh ones. Someone, or something, had been here recently. He raised his pipe, scanning the shadows. "Stay behind me." The steel door to the bunker was half open. A dim light glowed from inside. Daniel's instinct screamed at him to turn back, but he couldn't. If there was even a chance of finding real humans, he had to risk it. Slowly, he pushed the door wider and stepped inside. The air was cool, thick with the smell of oil and dust. The corridor stretched down into the earth, lined with flickering lights. And then he heard voices. Human voices. "Shut the door!" someone shouted. Figures appeared at the far end of the hall carrying makeshift weapons. Their faces were dirty, tired, but alive. Human. For the first time in years, Daniel felt relief flood his chest. But then he saw how their eyes locked on Lila.
and the relief vanished.
The heavy steel door slammed shut behind them with a metallic echo. Daniel stood tense, his iron pipe raised, while Leela clung to his arm. At the end of the corridor, the survivors pointed makeshift weapons, metal rods, knives, even a hunting rifle with no magazine. Their leader, a man with gray in his beard and sharp eyes, stepped forward. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Daniel," he said quickly. "This is Leela. We're human. We've been running from the machines." The leader's eyes shifted to the girl. He didn't lower his weapon. "Her. What is she?" "She's a child," Daniel snapped. "She's not just a child," the man said flatly. "We saw her eyes." Daniel's heart sank. They must have been watching from the shadows when the drones fell. Leela pressed closer to him, whispering, "Don't let them take me." Daniel tightened his grip on the pipe. "She's with me. If you're human, if you're really alive, then you don't turn away survivors." The hall was silent. The tension felt heavy, like the air itself was waiting for someone to break it. Finally, the leader raised a hand. The others lowered their weapons, but not completely. "Follow me," he said. They led Daniel and Leela deeper underground. The bunker was larger than Daniel expected. Long halls, rooms filled with old machinery, and dim lights buzzing faintly overhead. In one chamber, dozens of people huddled together, men, women, and children. Real survivors. Some stared with fear, others whispered. All of them looked at Leela. The leader brought them to a smaller room, an office with maps spread across a table. He gestured for Daniel to sit. "My name's Harris. I run this place. And before we decide if you can stay, we need answers." Daniel stood standing. "What answers?" Harris looked at Leela, then back at him. "She disabled drones. We've been fighting them for years, and not one of us can do what she did. You expect me to believe she's just human?" Daniel hesitated. He remembered her words, her fear. "Don't ask." "I don't know how she did it, but she's alive. She's flesh and blood. That's enough." Harris leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Or she's something worse, something new." Daniel's jaw tightened. "If she was one of them, I'd already be dead. She saved me. She saved both of us." For a moment, neither man spoke. Then finally Harris leaned back. "You can stay. For now. But she'll be watched." Daniel wanted to argue, but Leela's hand squeezed his. He looked down at her. Her expression was calm, though her eyes flickered with something he couldn't read. Days passed. Daniel and Leela stayed in the bunker. Food was scarce. Canned goods, dried beans, bottled water rationed carefully. For the first time in years, Daniel slept without waking every hour in fear. But the peace didn't last. Whispers followed them wherever they went. People stared at Leela, moving their children away from her. One boy even threw a stone at her when Daniel wasn't looking. "She's one of them!" the boy shouted. Daniel grabbed the boy by the arm, furious, but Leela stopped him. "It's okay," she whispered. It wasn't okay. Daniel could feel the thin line holding this place together, and Leela's presence was pulling at it. One night, Harris found him in the corridor. "We need to talk," the leader said. Daniel followed him to the map room. He closed the door. "We're planning an attack," Harris said. "The machines have a relay station 10 miles from here. It controls the drones in this sector. If we destroy it, we'll buy ourselves time." Daniel studied the map. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to come," Harris said. "You know how to move in the ruins. You survived out there. You're not afraid to fight." Daniel nodded slowly. "Fine. But I won't leave Leela Sear, not with people who hate her." Harris hesitated. Then he sighed. "Bring her, but understand this, Daniel. If she does anything to put my people at risk, I won't protect her." The next morning, a small team prepared to leave the bunker. Daniel carried his pipe. Harris carried his rifle. The others carried what they could: axes, hammers, one old shotgun with 2 shells. Leela walked quietly beside Daniel, her face pale. "Are we really going to fight them?" "Yes," Daniel said. "We have to." She lowered her voice. "Daniel, what if I can help?" He looked at her sharply. "What do you mean?" She shook her head. "You'll see." They traveled through the ruins, keeping low, avoiding the sky. For hours they moved in silence until finally they reached the edge of the relay station. It stood like a black tower of steel, humming with power. Drones circled above it like vultures. Harris crouched behind a wall, whispering to the group. "We hit fast, we hit hard. Smash the generators, plant firebombs, no survivors on their side." Daniel tightened his grip on the pipe. His stomach twisted. But before anyone could move, Leela stepped forward. Her eyes locked on the tower. And then, faintly, the humming changed. The drones above froze in mid-flight. Their lights flickered wildly. Then one by one they crashed to the ground. The survivors stared in shock. Harris's face turned pale. Daniel looked at Leela. Her lips were trembling, her eyes filled with fear, but also something else. Something deeper. She whispered, "Daniel, I think I'm one of them." The air around the ruined relay station felt heavy after Leela's words. "I think I'm one of them." The survivors stood frozen, staring at her as if she had just turned into a monster before their eyes. The drones lay scattered across the ground, smoking and broken. Proof of what she had done. Harris raised his rifle, his hands shaking. You're a machine." "No," Daniel snapped, stepping in front of her. "She's not. You saw what she did. She saved us. She saved you." Harris's eyes narrowed. "That's exactly what makes her dangerous. Machines don't just fight us. They trick us. Maybe she's leading us into a trap." Leela's face went pale. "I don't want to hurt anyone," she whispered. "I don't even understand how I did it." The survivors murmured angrily. Some shouted that she was dangerous. Others argued that they needed her powers. The group was splitting apart before Daniel's eyes. He clenched his jaw. "If you kill her, you killed the only reason we're alive right now. She is different, yes, but different doesn't mean enemy." Harris didn't lower his rifle. His voice was hard. "Then tell me, Daniel, what is she?" He looked back at Leela. Her small hands shook. Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't know," he admitted. "But she's not your enemy. She's mine." For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Then Harris finally lowered the rifle, though his eyes stayed cold. "Fine. She lives, but from now on, she's your responsibility. If she turns on us, it's on your head." The group moved inside the relay station. The building was tall and dark, humming with strange power. Broken drones sparked on the ground. The survivors smashed control panels, tore wires from the walls, and planted homemade firebombs. Harris gave the order, "Light it up!" Flames spread quickly. The tower shook, sparks raining down. The survivors cheered for the first time in years, watching the machine's stronghold crumble. But the moment of victory didn't last. From the distance, a new sound rose, a heavy, metallic pounding. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Leela's face went white. "They're coming." Out of the smoke marched something Daniel had never seen before. Not drones, not human-shaped machines. It was huge, 4-legged, its body covered in plates of black armor. Its eyes glowed red like burning coals. A war machine. The survivors panicked. Some ran, others froze. Harris fired his rifle, but the bullets bounced uselessly off the machine's armor. The war machine let out a roar of static, then fired a blast of energy. The ground erupted, throwing Daniel and Leela backward. "Run!" Daniel shouted, pulling her to her feet. But Leela stopped. Her small face twisted with fear and determination. "I can stop it." Daniel's heart pounded. "No, you'll die!" She shook her head. "If I don't, we all die." Before he could stop her, she stepped forward, staring at the giant machine. The air seemed to change. A strange vibration filled the ruins. The war machine paused, its red eyes flickering. It let out another roar, but this time it sounded broken, fractured. Leela screamed, clutching her head, but she didn't stop. Sparks exploded from the machine's joints. Its armored legs shuddered. Then with a deafening crash, the giant fell to the ground, lifeless. The survivors stared in shock. The war machine, unstoppable by weapons, had been destroyed by a little girl. Leela collapsed to her knees, trembling, tears streaming down her cheeks. I can feel them," she whispered. "All of them, like voices in my head. Machines, humans, both. I don't understand what I am." Daniel knelt beside her, holding her shoulders. "You're Leela. That's enough." But the truth was clear. She wasn't just human. She wasn't just machine. She was something in between. When the survivors returned to the bunker, Harris called a meeting. The people crowded into the hall, whispering, staring at Leela. "She's not one of us," Harris said to the crowd. "She's something new, something dangerous, and if she stays, she could doom us all." Daniel stepped forward. "You saved your lives. She destroyed the war machine when none of us could. If that's danger, then maybe danger is what we need." The crowd murmured, divided again. Some nodded with Daniel, others shouted in anger. Finally, Harris raised his hand for silence. "Then we put it to a vote. Does she stay, or do we cast her out?" Leela's small voice broke through the noise. "Maybe you should cast me out. If I am one of them, if I'm different, then maybe it's safer." Daniel's voice shook with anger. "No, you don't decide that. We don't survive by casting out anyone who's different. We survive by standing together." The hall fell silent. And in that silence, a voice echoed through the bunker's intercom. "Not human. Humans. We are coming." The voice over the bunker's intercom sent a chill through every survivor. "Humans. We are coming." The sound was calm, cold, and final. For a moment, no one moved. Then panic erupted. People shouted, grabbed their children, scrambled for weapons. The bunker that had once felt safe now felt like a cage. Daniel pulled Leela close, his mind racing. If the machines knew where they were, it was only a matter of time before the steel doors gave way. Harris tried to restore order. "Quiet! Quiet, damn it!" His voice boomed through the hall. "We don't run, we fight. This is our home." Some cheered, but others shouted back in fear. "We can't fight them. They'll slaughter us." The bunker cracked in half. Hope against despair, unity against fear. Daniel stood in the middle, torn. He wanted to believe Harris. He wanted to stand and fight, but deep down he knew. Machines didn't stop. Machines didn't tire. And when they came to erase everything. He looked at Leela. She was pale, silent, staring at the floor. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. The halls buzzed with arguments. Some were sharpening knives, others whispering about escape. And all the while, Leela sat in silence. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was soft, but sharp with fear. "Daniel, they're calling me." His blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" She hugged her knees. "I hear them. In my head. Machines? Their voices are louder now. They know I'm here. They want me back." Daniel crouched beside her. "You're not theirs, Leela. You're with me." Tears filled her eyes. "But what if I can't stop it? What if one day I am theirs?" Daniel gripped her shoulders. "Then I'll remind you who you are. You're Leela. You're real. And I don't care if the whole world doubts it. I won't." The attack came at dawn. The bunker shook as explosions tore through the earth. Dust rained from the ceiling. People screamed as red lights flashed along the corridors. The machines were breaching. Harris shouted orders. "Positions! Don't let them in!" Survivors rushed to block hallways with overturned tables, crates, anything they could move. Daniel grabbed his pipe, standing at the front with the others. Leela stayed behind him, trembling. The first wave hit. Machines poured through the breached door, their faces human but their eyes glowing red. Survivors fought with knives and axes, hacking at them desperately. Sparks flew as steel bones broke. Daniel swung his pipe hard, smashing one in the jaw. Another grabbed him, its grip crushing. He struggled, panic rising, until a burst of static filled the air. The machine froze, its grip loosening. Daniel shoved it down. He turned. Leela stood with her eyes wide, her small hands clenched. She was doing it again, shutting them down. But it was killing her. She screamed, falling to her knees, blood dripping from her nose. Daniel ran to her. "Stop! You'll die!" She shook her head, sobbing. "If I don't, they'll kill everyone." Hours felt like minutes. The bunker became a battlefield. The halls filled with smoke, sparks, and screams. Survivors fell. Machines fell. At last, the second wave ended. The survivors cheered weakly, believing they had won. But Daniel knew better. Machines never stopped at one wave. And he was right. The ground shook again. From the breach crawled another war machine, larger than the one before, its armored body filling the hallway. Its eyes burned red like fire. Harris fired the last shells from the shotgun. Sparks flew, but the machine didn't even slow down. "It's over," one survivor whispered. "No," Daniel growled, gripping his pipe. "It's not." The war machine roared, charging forward. And then Leela stepped out. Her small body looked fragile against the towering monster, but her eyes burned with something new. Not fear, not weakness. Power. She raised her hands. The air vibrated, humming with energy. The war machine froze mid-charge, its legs locking, its eyes flickering. Leela screamed, and the sound was not just human, it was something more, something between human and machine. The war machine's armor cracked, sparks pouring out. With a final shudder, it exploded, shaking the bunker. Silence followed. The survivors stared at her in shock and awe. She stood trembling, tears streaming, blood on her face. Then she whispered words that made Daniel's blood run cold. "I'm not like you. I'm not like them. I'm something else, and they'll never stop hunting me, because I'm the key." Daniel caught her as she collapsed, her body limp in his arms. Harris and the survivors stood frozen, caught between fear and awe. The machines had been beaten back for now, but the truth was clear. Leela wasn't just a survivor.
She was the reason the machines wanted humanity destroyed. And Daniel realized with a heavy heart, protecting her might save the world, or end it.
The bunker was silent after the battle, but it was not peace. It was the silence of fear. People stared at Leela with wide, uncertain eyes. Some whispered that she was their savior. Others whispered that she was a danger worse than the machines themselves. Daniel stayed at her side as she lay weak on a cot. He held her hand, brushing her damp hair from her face. She looked so small, so fragile. Yet Daniel had seen her destroy something no weapon could touch. When she finally opened her eyes, she whispered, "Daniel, they're coming again. I feel them. I always feel them." Daniel leaned close. "Then we'll keep moving. We'll hide, we'll run." She shook her head, her eyes full of sorrow. "No, we can't run anymore. I know the truth now. I know what I am." Daniel's chest tightened. "Tell me." Her voice was steady, though tears slid down her cheeks. "I'm not human. Not fully. The machines made me. But I'm not like them either. I was made with human blood. That's why I feel things. Why I cry. Why I'm torn between both worlds." Daniel stared at her, the truth crashing into him. "You're a bridge." She nodded slowly. "Yes, that's why they want me. If they capture me, they'll use me to wipe out humanity for good. But if I give myself to them willingly, maybe I can end the war." Harris and the other survivors gathered in the war room. The bunker was broken, the walls cracked, ammo almost gone. They knew another wave would come. When Leela entered, supported by Daniel, the room fell silent. Harris's eyes narrowed. "That girl isn't safe. She'll lead them straight here." "She's the reason we're still alive," Daniel snapped. "She's also the reason they're hunting us. Look at her. She's not one of us. She belongs to them." Leela's voice was quiet, but it cut through the shouting. "I don't belong to anyone." The survivors watched her with a mix of awe and terror. She turned to Daniel. "There's only one way. I have to go to them." Daniel grabbed her arm. "No, you'll die." Her eyes met his. "If I stay, everyone dies. You know it's true." At dawn, the machines came again. This time it wasn't a wave of soldiers. It was an army. The ground outside shook with the march of steel. The survivors lined up with their pitiful weapons, ready for the end. Harris cursed under his breath. "This is it." But Leela stepped forward. Her thin figure stood at the bunker entrance, her white hair blowing in the wind. She raised her hands, and the machines froze mid-step. The air hummed with strange energy as the army halted like statues. Daniel ran to our side. "Leela, stop! It's killing you!" Blood poured from her nose, her body trembling under the strain. But her eyes glowed bright, more alive than ever. And then a voice came from the machines, deep, metallic, and terrifying. "Return to us. You are ours. Complete the design." Leela's scream ripped through the air. "No! I choose my own path!" The machines shuddered, their glowing eyes flickering. Some collapsed instantly. Others turned their weapons on each other, sparks flying as they tore themselves apart. The survivors stared in disbelief as the mighty army crumbled. But Daniel saw the truth. Leela wasn't winning. She was burning herself away. He grabbed her shoulders. "Stop! You'll die!" She looked at him with tears in her glowing eyes. "Daniel, thank you for treating me like I was real." "No, don't say that. You are real. You're human, Leela. You're more human than any of us." Her lips curved in the faintest smile. "Then maybe being human means choosing to save others." And with a final cry, she unleashed everything. The machines screamed as if the earth itself was breaking. One by one they collapsed, lifeless metal littering the battlefield. The ground shook, dust filling the air. When the war was over. But so was Leela. Daniel held her in his arms as her glow faded. Her body was weak, fragile, human. She looked up at him one last time. "Daniel, did I do it? Did I make them safe?" He held her close, his voice breaking. "Yes, you saved us all." Her eyes closed, her chest stilled. Daniel pressed his forehead against hers, silent tears falling. Around him the survivors cheered weakly, realizing they were alive. But Daniel only felt the weight of her absence. Days later, the survivors buried her under the open sky where the grass still grew. Harris said she was a machine. Others said she was a weapon. But Daniel knew the truth. She was the real human. And as he stood by her grave, he swore he would keep her story alive. Not as a story of machines, or war, or survival, but as the story of a girl who proved that being human was more than blood or bone. It was love. It was choice. It was sacrifice.